It is generally believed that Isaac Newton was the first person to discover calculus, with the myth being Newton was inspired to discover calculus when an apple fell on his head. The apple myth may be true, but we are not here to dispute that. What may not be true was that Isaac Newton being the first person to discover calculus. In 1666, Newton started to develop a new mathematical treatise. A treatise, according to Google, is a written work dealing formally and systematically with a subject. This treatise would later be known as the method of fluxions. Fluxions is Newton's name for derivatives. Though Newton formally formed his theory on calculus in 1666 and published it in 1693, he did not formally fully prove the method of fluxions until 1703. Here you can see what Newton's notation looks like. Newton's notation focused on fluxions and fluents, terms he used to describe the rate of change in quantities being changed, respectively. 8 years after Newton started developing his idea of calculus in 1674, another mathematician started developing their idea of calculus. 10 years later, in 1684, this research would eventually be published as Nova Methodus Pro Maximus et Minimis. Unfortunately, we ran out of both budget and time to make a better book model, so I guess you guys have to settle for this. Introducing Newton's competitor, German philosopher, diplomat, and mathematician, Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz. One of the most important influences left by the Nova Methodus Pro Maximus et Minimis is Leibniz notation. Leibniz notation, which we still use today, includes the integral sign and the differential d, as can be seen.
The differences in Leibniz's and Newton's notation and approach reveal a deeper conceptual divide. Newton's fluxions were deeply geometric, rooted in motion and change, while Leibniz's calculus was more about the logic and algebra of infinitesimals. Though Leibniz published his paper before Newton, due to Newton beginning to write his paper before Leibniz, many people in the Newton community started to get suspicious of whether Leibniz plagiarized Newton. In 1699, simmering tension exploded into open accusations of plagiarism. Newton's camp claimed Leibniz had access to Newton's unpublished manuscripts and directly copied his ideas.
The Royal Society, which was supposed to be an impartial scientific body, was roped into this dispute. In 1712, they formed a committee to investigate the claims of plagiarism, and perhaps unsurprisingly, given that Newton was the president of the Royal Society at the time, the committee supported Newton's claims to priority. This ruling did little to settle the debate, but rather intensified the division.
Let's invite the two mathematicians into the ring. In an attempt to finally resolve the conflict, a formal competition was organized between the two mathematicians. The issue with the competition was the problem was not formulated clearly, and only later it became clear that it was required to find the general solution and not a particular solution. As a result, Newton accidentally solved for a particular answer and not the general answer. Soon after Newton submitted his decision, Leibniz sent his. Due to Leibniz publishing a more general answer, Leibniz formally won the competition.
Both Newton and Leibniz played crucial roles in advancing calculus. Their individual approaches and insights laid the groundwork for the calculus we use today. Despite the rivalry, the contributions of both mathematicians have had a lasting impact. So you decide, who invented calculus?